month has flown by. That means it's time to stop and rank all of the March new releases that I saw from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all the March new releases that you saw. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. One more thing before we get started, I have a quick announcement. Next week on Saturday, April 9th, I will be at Fan Expo Philadelphia with Austin Burke, leading a panel called How to Grow a Nerdy YouTube Channel. Then after the panel is over with, Austin and I will be in the hallway and we will talk or take pictures with whoever is interested. For as long as people are interested, we will be out there wanting to meet people. So if you're in the Pennsylvania area and you want to learn about YouTube or meet Austin or myself, consider attending Fan Expo Philadelphia next weekend. And let's get started. Coming in last place, Turning Red. Now this is a Pixar film I just didn't particularly enjoy. Now, the animation here is top notch, and with the way they've been animating humans in the last few films, they've kind of been changing things up, breaking from their traditional style. I can appreciate them trying some new things, and the movie has kind of this hyperactive animation style to it, which once again is Pixar doing something a little bit different. I can appreciate all of that, but at the end of the day, this is a movie where I found the characters irritating. Basically, as soon as the movie started, my wife turned to me and she goes, "What is this movie? Who are these characters?" And when it came to the way that it was telling its story, it felt like Pixar tried to copy the style of the Lord and Miller produced animated films that's just hyperactive, kind of showing expression, zooming in, cutaways, and it felt out of place with a Pixar film. And then when you combine that with kind of these middle school girl characters that are just very loud, obsessed with boys, obsessed with boy bands, it's just not something that I naturally gravitate towards or characters that I was invested in at all. And then it framed the mother as just so overbearing, so willing to embarrass her child or clueless as to the fact that she's embarrassing her child, that I just didn't care about any of them, so I wasn't invested in the emotional journey. And then even with the arcs that they were doing, it just felt like territory that Pixar and Disney have been exploring a lot recently. Adding to that, it had a bunch of just edgy humor that felt out of place and off-brand for Pixar. And so you had a movie where I didn't buy into the characters. Parts of it felt familiar. In general, it just feels like Teen Wolf, except it's Teen Panda for, middle school girls. And so if you don't enjoy the humor, you don't enjoy the characters, and it feels familiar, at the end of the day, it doesn't really work for you. Now, the part that was really surprising is that this movie has certainly taken the place of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 as the movie that I've gotten the biggest backlash for not liking it, which I wasn't really expecting because, Pixar, family friendly, fun, enjoyable. I just didn't like the movie, and people were not happy about that. Number 4, Cheaper by the Dozen. After the total train wreck that was Home Sweet Home Alone last year, this was a pleasant surprise, I guess, because it wasn't a total train wreck to me, while not being particularly good either. They change up the formula just a bit by making it a biracial couple and adding kind of some new layers into the story with that. So it's not just a beat-for-beat remake of the previous version. And I thought Zach Braff did a good job in this type of role. So there's just enough kind of things going on that I bought into that I was like, okay, I don't know why we needed to remake Cheaper by the Dozen again. This isn't amazing. It's not particularly memorable, but it's at least not Home Sweet Home Alone. Now, I will say this. It felt like this started out as a TV show, and they had a whole season's worth of subplots that they crammed into a 90-minute movie where it feels like the first 20 minutes is episode number 1 and the next 20 minutes is episode 2. Felt like every 20 minutes explored some new aspect of blended families or different family dynamics or adopted kids. And so it was a bit all over the place. It wasn't that cohesive with the central story because there were so many subplots going on in such a short film, but I did think it had a little bit of a charm to it at the same time. In third place, The Lost City. Now, when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I knew that was going to be a good date night for my wife and I because she loves Sandra Bullock rom-coms. I enjoy Sandra Bullock rom-coms. Both of us enjoy the movie Romancing the Stone, and this looks like a 21st century update of Romancing the Stone. Actually, it's very overtly a 21st century update of Romancing the Stone. And that's the best and the worst thing about it. At its core, the movie works because it's a fun genre with two leads that have good chemistry and some nice supporting characters that all get some big, nice standout moment where some of the absurdity of what they're doing with Daniel Radcliffe. Channing Tatum is totally willing to put himself out there, make a fool of himself all throughout the film. And then Brad Pitt gets an awesome, it's a smaller role in the film, but she steals every single scene that he's in. And of course, Sandra Bullock is Sandra Bullock, so she's great in movies like this. It's also a movie that's extremely predictable. It is following the Romancing the Stone template pretty closely. I mean, it certainly changes up the ingredients and the nature of the story and everything like that, but it hits quite a few beats from Romancing the Stone, including the opening segment of this film. It's just a more slapstick version of the exact intro to Romancing the Stone. So every time I was like, oh man, this is too derivative, this is too basic, this is too slapstick, something would happen that was just laugh out loud funny. I mean, there are just some amazing, hilarious sequences in this movie. So at the end of the day, this movie's job was to make me laugh and to deliver a fun date night for my wife and I. And that's exactly what we did. We got some great laughs. We had fun at the movies. It's no classic. It's no Romancing the Stone. If you haven't seen Romancing the Stone, go watch Romancing the Stone. But if you're in the mood for a fun date night in the theaters these days, this is a fun date night movie with charismatic leads. Not the best writing, but a fun time at the movies. Our runner-up, The Adam Project, a throwback sci-fi adventure film that feels like an Amblin film. It feels like Back to the Future. It feels like a whole bunch of movies from back in the 80s, except with 21st century special effects, pacing, and aesthetics to it. At its core, you've got Ryan Reynolds playing against this young boy that's playing a young Ryan Reynolds, and the little boy does a great young Ryan Reynolds. So it's just a lot of fun to see Ryan Reynolds doing his usual stick, but with someone that he can play off of in a really fun way. There's a bunch of cool sci-fi action sequences all throughout the film. I'm always a sucker for time travel stories, and this has time travel all over it, written all throughout the entire thing. But what really elevates this movie is that at its core, it's a movie that's all about family. It's all about your relationship with your parents, the wounds that come from childhood, processing everything that happens, the choices that we made. And so there are so many moments all throughout this movie that just tug and rip at the heartstrings. While you have all of the typical Ryan Reynolds shtick, the jokes, the one-liners coming from him as well as the kid, and all the sci-fi actions and spaceships and ray guns and their version of lightsabers, you also have all these moments where just pauses to have moments between a father and a son and a father and his mother and a grown-up man with a younger version of himself, and they really land. The moments, the emotional moments land, if anything, even more so than the action set pieces and the jokes. Now, it wasn't a total home run for me. It's a movie where apparently it's been in It's been in development hell for about 10 years now, and the original version of it was written 10 years ago, and someone else came on, and they wrote their draft, and they brought another person came on, new director, new screenwriters, and the movie feels a little bit like that, where there's some repeated plot beats in there. There's a few too many family dynamics going on, where there's the wife, the mother, the younger self, the dad, kind of repeats some ideas with having so many different dynamics to it that you could just feel multiple writers adding their new layer to it. And then there's just these versions from previous skips that kind of made it into the film that was developed, even though they don't quite need to be there anymore. But at the end of the day, it did what it was supposed to do. It was an exciting adventure that actually, kind of brought out a couple man tears there. They're very small ones for me, at least. But it certainly brings out the man tears at the end where you're having these father-son dynamics taking place. It really did its job, and is a solid Netflix movie I absolutely recommend you check out. But coming in first place, The Batman, my most anticipated movie of 2022. Now, when they announced that Matt Reeves was going to be replacing Oscar-winning storyteller Ben Affleck directing and writing the film, I thought to myself, if Ben Affleck can't do it, this is probably my number one choice to do it because of what he was able to do with his Planet of the Apes movies. At least at the time he was announced, what he was able to do with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where he just crafted this intelligent blockbuster that's tragic, it's dark, and it also features apes on horseback dual-wielding machine guns battling a tank. It can do something that stupid while telling a real tragedy with emotion and insane spectacle. That's the guy that I want to do the Batman. And every trailer that they've dropped, I thought, nailed what I wanted from a Batman movie. Every interview he gave nailed what I was hoping we would get from a Batman movie. And for the most part, I got the Batman movie that I wanted. For 20 years, I have wanted a Batman detective story, not a Batman spy thriller or a thriller with a little bit of detective work, a movie that focuses on him as the detective. That's what this is. It's all about a murder mystery. It's heavily influenced by Seven and Zodiac in a number of different ways. And so you have Batman as front and center, him in the suit, investigating, working with Gordon in this populated, lived-in Gotham. I loved all that stuff about it. Robert Pattinson ended up being a great Batman in the suit. He is this imposing force. He is threatening, and so much of this movie I loved. I don't think it fully lands in the third act. I think it loses a bit of steam after the Riddler is arrested and has to reshuffle a little bit, and some things didn't pay off as well as I'd hoped. So it wasn't totally the grand slam that I was hoping for. None of that changes the fact that this is the Batman movie I have been waiting for 20 years and delivered so much of exactly what I wanted from a Batman movie, exactly what I wanted from a Matt Reeves Batman movie. So it easily comes in at number one. If you enjoyed this video, I've got more like it. You can check out my other reviews of 2022 movies right over there, as well as my full reviews for a bunch of the movies discussed in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much.